I was calling to see if I could speak to Mayor Rachel Ruelas.
They told me she wasn't there.
Is she not coming into the office at all today?
They told me they'd pass on a message.
There is no quorum to go forward with this meeting, and that this was a very expensive meeting tonight. So with that, we will adjourn this meeting at 6:32.
Let's discuss a mayor who has been in the news for all the wrong reasons lately. If you thought small, Rachel Ruelas from Mount Vernon, Washington, is currently trapped in what can only be characterized as political pandemonium. Politics in town were boring. This narrative will make you think twice about a recall attempt, a police department breakdown, missing budgets, and personal altercations. Seeing a drama play out in real time is similar to that, and if that wasn't enough, some have even compared her to another controversial mayor, Tiffany Henyard of Dalton, Illinois, with an alleged fictitious robbery scheme tossed in for good measure. But is that a fair comparison? Let's explore the chaos to learn more.
The year with over $1.2 million in the bank. But according to the proposed budget amendment, they're actually ending the year with under $1 million.
Although it may seem like a relief, Rachel Ruelas won a ride-in vote rather than a typical election campaign to become mayor of Milton in 2021. The underdog tale. Until you see how events have transpired since before she was recognized as Mayor Ruelas. Organizing weddings, events, and even funerals for her boutique business is one thing, but managing a small-town government is quite another, and many locals now think she may have been in over her head from the start.
Last year, Mabton City Council failed to pass a budget by the end of the year, and they spent 11 months of the year spending money without a plan.
First, let's talk about the police department, or rather the absence of one. Over the past few months, the number of officers on the ground has decreased to just one. That's correct. Until he resigned as an official, one person was left to oversee the entire town. After reportedly encountering the mayor herself, Ryan Sullivan resigned. According to accounts, Sullivan arrived at the police department with a locksmith and demanded unsupervised access to the facility. Given that he was obviously worried about security procedures, he denied her request and promptly resigned, leaving Mabton without a municipal police force. Eduardo Garcia, the former police chief, also announced his early retirement, citing similar problems with the mayor's behavior. It's not often that a whole police department basically quits, but in Milton, it appears to have become the norm.
That you're not fit for this job. What you need to do is you need to step down. The sooner the better, because this has gotten way, way out of hand.
Not only did the police department's collapse make locals feel insecure, but it also generated serious concerns about how the municipality would manage crises without its own officers. Maine has been forced to rely on aid from other communities, although this has its own set of difficulties. Residents are now left to fend for themselves due to drastically increased response times. For themselves in circumstances where every second counts, a resident who wished to remain anonymous expressed their frustration. If someone breaks into my house, what should I do? Call the department that doesn't exist. The absence of police presence has made daily life risky, contributing to the growing chorus of dissatisfaction against Ruelas.
My grandparents were assaulted, and I believe that the cops should have came onto duty and taken the report first.
Although Raya's supporters assert that the police resignations were politically motivated, the mayor's detractors say this is just another instance of her poor management and incapacity to put the needs of the town first. Others point out that the problems with the department predate the recall efforts, and the situation has gotten so bad that some residents have even proposed disbanding the town's police force completely and contracting out law enforcement to Yako County. But that would come with a higher cost that the cash-strapped town can barely afford. Now Ford, although she has mainly kept quiet about the police issue's specifics and given evasive guarantees that all will be resolved, many locals find those remarks to be comforting. At a recent town hall meeting, a disgruntled participant stood up and yelled, "Handled." After a terrible incident occurred, the tension in the room was evident, with several attendees accusing the mayor of being disconnected from the reality on the ground. The lack of clear communication has only fueled rumors and speculation, further undermining confidence in her leadership.
To follow up if sheriffs were being dispatched, being that Mabton didn't have any cops on duty.
In the meantime, local businesses have begun to feel the impacts of the police department's collapse. Store owners have reported an increase in thefts, with one business owner stating that there is no one to call and that thievery has become almost daily. The owner described it as being like the wild. The absence of security is just one more setback for a small town that is already having financial difficulties. Residents fear that if the problem is not rectified quickly, businesses and people may leave Mabton with an even worse future.
She's a narcissist. She's mentally ill. She really belongs in a locked room. Yeah, you do, Rachel.
You would think that losing the police department would be a scandal in and of itself, but this is only the beginning. The budget, or more accurately, the absence of one, is one of the major problems looming over the Russ's administration. According to state law, cities must operate with an approved budget, but Mabton has been operating without one for 2 years, 2 whole years, leaving the public and the city council in the dark about how much. Residents have pointed out that city revenue has fallen in recent years with no clear explanation as to why. For example, revenue from utility taxes dropped from over $40,000 to just $8,000, an 80% decrease. When asked about the budget at one council meeting, Ruse reportedly admitted she didn't have one ready and blamed her staff for the delay. Where's the money going? That's $1 million question, and nobody has definitive answers as of yet.
I do want to thank Councilwoman Diana for showing up, Councilwoman Vera showing up, our attorney, and our chief of police.
Just wait. Depending on your viewpoint, it either gets better or worse. At last, the city council decided to launch a recall attempt against Rallis, claiming she was incredibly incompetent and that she had engaged in dubious employment practices and failed to submit a budget promoting her personal company on the city's website. In one particularly startling instance, a deputy municipal clerk was detained in relation to a fictitious robbery scheme. According to the police, the clerk claims she was defrauded of $22,000 in public monies. But investigators later detained the brother of the deputy clerk's boyfriend as the supposed mass thief after the tale didn't line up. The questions about the clerk's role still exist. Speaking of fires, this episode simply fueled the flames for those who were advocating for Rilla's removal from power. Let's talk about the brawl. According to sources, a fight broke out at a local restaurant and spilled onto the parking lot, involving the mayor, her family, and a resident who had filed a recall petition against her. Video footage captures the chaos that ensued, including shouting, pushing, and even claims of someone brandishing a crowbar. The loud noise interrupted them, and Mr. Thorin yelled at a woman because he was unable to cross the street. Both parties have since filed restraining orders against one another, and the incident has only widened the rift in the already divided community.
The crisis in Mabton has reached a breaking point last week as residents expressed frustration over poor leadership, an empty police department, and an unresolved 2025 budget.
Since a judge decided that 2 of the charges, using city resources to promote her personal business and failing to adopt a budget, were sufficient grounds for a recall, you may be wondering how Rallis has handled all of this. She is battling the recall effort to the death, appealing the court's decision to proceed with a petition. However, Rallis isn't giving up, and she is taking her case all the way to the Washington State Court. Supreme Court, the City Council is frantically trying to bring order back in the interim, even threatening to take legal action to make the mayor follow budgetary regulations. Not simply people from Mabton are watching this drama on the internet. The topic has generated a lot of discussion, with some commenters comparing it to Tiffany Henyard, the divisive mayor of Ton, Illinois, who has dealt with a number of controversies, including financial claims of targeting political opponents, and poor management. People are obviously frustrated not only with Rallis, but also with what they perceive to be a larger pattern of small-town corruption. One fan wrote, "When are voters going to learn that voting for the best candidate should never, ever be based on gender, race, or ethnicity?" Another fan added, Isn't this the kind of stuff the FBI is supposed to be working on?
A mayoral candidate being challenged. The saga surrounding embattled South Suburban politician Tiffany Henyard continues.
It's difficult to avoid seeing the similarities, such as the fact that Rulis Henyard has been accused of abusing her position for personal benefit and disregarding the needs of her community. Both have been the target of recall attempts, but they have fiercely resisted the calls to resign. The Rulis story, on the other hand, has an additional layer of chaos with the collapse of the police department and the physical altercation. It's almost like a reality show, but the stakes are very real for the residents of these towns. Where does Mabton go from here? The town is currently without a police force, a budget, and a lot of faith in its leadership. Residents have been vocal about their frustrations as the recall process continues, and it is unclear if Ruth will survive the legal and political obstacles she is facing, attending council sessions and asking for answers. But thus far, they have been difficult to obtain. Regardless, this story isn't done. Whether Rule resigns, is removed by recall, or keeps up the fight for critics. For years to come, Mabton will have to deal with the fallout. And as for Ruth herself, she's still defiant in claiming she has done nothing wrong and blaming her problems on a hostile city council. It's a classic case of he said, she said, but with so much at stake, the people of Milton are caught in the crossfire. What do you think about the situation? Should small towns like Milton have stricter oversight to prevent this kind of chaos? Do you think Russ is being unfairly singled out, or is she really unsuited to lead? Please share your opinions in the comment section below, and as usual, check back for more updates on this developing story. Until we meet again, thanks for watching Visual Vortex.